A very warm welcome to Law and You here on Independent Television. It's always a delight to have you join us here on the program. This is ITV, we're in Benin City, Nigeria. I'm Uyi Agmofwegbe. On the program this week, we're looking at juvenile crimes and then the consequences that naturally should follow. Imagine, for example, an adolescent, or if you like, a teenager commits an offense or a crime. What exactly should happen? A few years ago, when we were much younger, for instance, they would tell us that such cases or such adolescents or children are referred to welfare or some sort of remand home exclusively designed for them. But today, the dynamics are different. This is the 21st century, for instance. So we're looking at what the realities are versus what the law says about such instances. We're seeing children under the age of 18 commit, as it were, murder, take someone's life, for instance. What do you do in such a case as against a full-blown adult, for example? Again, we're looking at all of this against the backdrop of the position of the law. Of course, we have a constitution in this country, the 1999 Constitution, as amended. What exactly is the position of that document on matters of this nature? We're back shortly, so you'll meet my guest and then we'll get talking quite seriously. My guest is Barrister Matthias Obayowana. Apparently, he's a legal practitioner. Thank you so much for coming on the program, Matthias.
Thank you, and good afternoon, viewers.
I want us to look at this issue because it's very sensitive. Of course, emotions would normally be part of the conversation when you talk about not just crimes, but crimes allegedly committed by children. Even where, for example, it is established they've committed such crimes. What is it called? Of course, some persons will tell you certain things are just infraction or just basic offenses. But overall, how does the law look at these offenses or crimes supposedly committed by children as against when they are committed by full-blown adults?
Well, the section 30 of the criminal code, has provided that, talking about age of responsibility, that a child or any person who commits an offense, any person who is 12 years old, who is below 12 years old, commits an offense, the law looks at that person, at that child, as somebody who does not have the capacity to commit that offense. Is not criminally liable or responsible for that offense, except it can be shown to the court that the person understands that he or she ought not to have carried out that act or the omission which constitutes the offense. So the court finds that the child understands that what he has done is wrong, or she has done is wrong, and she ought not to have done it. Then it could be held responsible for it,
regardless of age.
Regardless of age, But generally, if you are below 12, you cannot be held. Just like even in case of rape, the law position is that it presumes that the child, below 12 is capable of committing a rape. So those kind of offenses for children, the age of responsibility is there, provided under section 30 of the criminal code. But generally, for juvenile, anybody below 17 is considered to be a juvenile. And if such a person commits an offense, such a person cannot, even when being arrested, cannot be kept, in custody with adults, with other persons who could further influence them, one way or the other. When they are able to try such an individual, that trial cannot be done in public. Under section 203 of the Criminal Procedure Act, the criminal trial should be conducted in public. But an exception will be created for juvenile, or any person who is below the age of 17. The law still provides that the court cannot pronounce sentence or conviction to say this person has been convicted of such an offense and the person has been sentenced to certain years imprisonment. That language cannot be used. The language that the court is permitted to use is that you have been found guilty of committing that offense, and then an order of court will be made based on the finding of guilt. The word conviction and sentence cannot be used against a child. And then where such a child is to be sent to any custody, any lawful custody. He cannot be sent to regular prison or correctional home where you have other adults. The child could be out to do other, to probational to do any act of probation or corporal punishment. And then if they are sending them, they have a juvenile home where they send such persons of the same age. They cannot be sent to regular prison or correctional home where we will mix up with other adults. In order not to be negatively influenced. And if for any instance or circumstance a child is found guilty of committing capital punishment like armed robbery or kidnapping, murder, which ordinarily would have incur the punishment of a sentence.
Or maybe in illegal possession of firearms or something.
And that is not a capital punishment.
Okay, it's not capital punishment. Okay.
Capital punishment is punishment that any person found guilty of such is sentenced to death. To death,
okay.
So the court cannot pronounce that death sentence on a child
because of the age.
Because of the age. So it can be committed to the maximum punishment that can be passed in such circumstances is life imprisonment, and that imprisonment is going to be to the welfare home, juvenile home, not to regular prison facility, and then it will be at the pleasure of the president. In such instance, the president can on his own decide to seek it for, I want this child to be released, issue a license for the release of the child. That license is also subject to a revocation at any point. So at the pleasure
of the president too.
Yes, whatever he likes, the president can say, okay, you release that child from custody, or I have released the child, but the child refused to behave properly. I cancel that order, I revoke that license, send him back to custody. It will be at the pleasure of the president. So every conviction that is being made, or rather a finding of guilt, let me know you can use the word conviction for a child. Of course. Finding of guilt has been made. The order the court will make is not to sentence him, but to find him guilty and order that he should be remanded, in lawful custody of the juvenile home.
When we talk about things like this, exactly, especially in light of the law, it sounds interesting and it's fun and it all looks beautiful. But when we look at that against the reality that we deal with, I mean, you are a practicing lawyer, for example. Is there an alignment? Is there consistency between the position of the law and the reality we have on the ground as far as the way cases affecting young people, young children are handled?
Yeah, there is, except in some instances. Sometimes when the police are charging, because even under the Criminal Procedure Act chapter 9 I mentioned, the police themselves cannot also keep a child in the cell amidst other adult offenders. Okay. So you must still keep them separate in a way that they will not mix up with those with adults. While it's in your custody until you take them to court, and when the court has made the order, the court will also order it should be sent to correctional home with adults. So they have to be careful with that. But the police, in order to make it easier for them, because they may not have that facility for keeping juvenile, they only have one facility for the cell for keeping all suspect. They will now inflate the age
of the child
and say this child is 18 years, or 17 years or 18 years, in a way that will beat that provision. So when you're not before the court to examine, even under the procedure, other criminal procedure act, the laws to provide for the judge or the magistrate to make inquiries
as to the age of the child.
And from what I see, this person is below 17, but you have 21 for him, or you have 20 for him. Mr. IPO, how did you come to that? How did you come to the age of 21? That is what he told me. Are you sure of this? So the court will make their preliminary findings in the court to totally find out when they were either to call the parents of the child or one way or the other to find out independently, if that child is actually up to that age. If the court finds that that child is not up to the age, the court will not have the trial done in public. They have to be done in chambers or clear the courtroom of the public to enable the safety and the dignity of the child. And then by the time the trial is concluded, you'll be careful, like I said, not to make another conviction or a sentence. So the language to be used for a child is different from that for adult. So the court had to be sure. So that's why we must make that inquiries even from the police when they bring them. But the law provides that whether or not the court is not so sure why the inquiry is going on, depending on the discretion of the court, they may decide to continue with it. If you say it is 21 years old, fine, that is what you are giving to me. trial will begin.
Yeah.
You know, or if it's not, if it's below that one, not to waste my time, let the trial begin until we come to determination as to the actual age of the child. You know, but for some call, like I said, discretion comes into play. Say, look, I made my inquiries. This child still cannot be above 17. You know, I don't believe it's an adult. You don't know the day the child was born. You can ask simple question: when were you born? If the child can remember the year he was born, you can calculate to know whether it's actually an adult or you know, or above 17 years old or not. If you say I don't know when I was born, how do you now arrive at 21 years or 20 years?
On what basis?
That you now put on the charge sheet. So some of the police officers, you know, will go to that length. And then when that is the case, it is the record that you have before you as a judge or the magistrate that you will use to work. So at the end, you now find such a person being sent to a correctional home, you know, mixing up with other adults. And then you go to visit the place, you now see somebody definitely looking underage. How did that happen? Say, well, the police wrote 21 years for me or 20 years for me, and that was how I found myself here. So in such instance, sometimes you may still find you need to ask them to locate such a person to the juvenile that obviously this person cannot be up to 18, up to 17. Something must have been wrong.
We've seen cases
so that the disconnect
that we're dealing with between reality and the position of the law. We've seen cases where, for instance, for whatever reason, the police will go out on a raid, then pick people at random, especially when certain crimes have been committed or perpetrated in certain areas. So they come out and they get to pick people at random with the idea of arresting and making an arrest, and then maybe investigation going forward and all that. Then in between, you find some underage children, some of them as young as 15, 16, for example. They are bundled alongside full-blown adults. They're taken to the police station. Sometimes you hear these people, including the children in their midst, doing as many as 2, 3, 4 nights in the police cell. And then I'm wondering, is there consequence for that? I mean, for the law enforcement, for example?
It is wrong. They are violating the law. I'm not so sure of the consequences that will flow other than disciplinary action. You know, if because under the law, the magistrate, you know, they have a committee that often set up to visit prisons, I mean, correctional homes and police station and police cell to find out the people that are there. You know, so where you find such a child being kept amidst adults in the cell, it is for you to query the officer in charge. Don't you know that what you have done is wrong? It's against the law to miss a child along this adult. You know, so you report them to their superior officers, who may call them to order, maybe issue them a query, you know, for doing that. It's a violation of the law. The only grounds upon which they could do so, that the law has not created such exception, is where they don't have enough facilities for the child to be kept, or where they believe that the child is even too dangerous or overruling in such a way that when you put him amidst other children, it may even influence them negatively, or even you know, bring harm to them. So in such circumstances, so that's the reason why you find yourself. But they must explain. They must explain what circumstance gives room for you to keep a child amidst adults. So where you cannot give that reasonable explanation, you have violated the law. You know, and then I believe administrative measures should be served as punishment for the officers.
Well, you look at Nigeria today. I was speaking with lawyers like yourself, especially those whose practice largely favors protection of girls and children that may be vulnerable people in society. And they say that children in Africa, for the most part, are not protected. Yes, in the eye of the law, they should be protected, but in practice, they're not protected. That further compounds these issues as to how cases, criminal cases in particular concerning children, are handled.
Yes,
right?
It does. I made a point once on this station that the correctional home, or the juvenile home, finally ought to have been a rehabilitation center. Such a way that when people come in there, they should come out better.
Not just to lock them up.
Not to lock them up. So you have to give them a orientation. While they are there, they are doing handwork. They are being pastors are coming to preach to them, imams are coming to preach to them. You know, the religious are always coming to talk to them. Counselors are there.
They are even learning skills.
To get them to understand that the crime is not the way to go.
Right.
You know, I saw a video in the social media of a young man who asked that he should be killed. That he was arrested and put in custody, and while he was in prison custody, it also would be better for him, but he mixed up with other criminals and he came back, you know, worse. and now he has committed another offense because he has nobody to help him, even his relation has abandoned him, and now he has nothing to do for himself. And I haven't been here that he cannot give the assurance that he will not commit another offense, because that is the only way, yes, that he understands that the only thing to do to stop him from committing another offense will kill him. So that tells you that is the damage of the correctional home that is not, the correctional home that is really not a correctional home. They are changing the name now from prison to correctional home in the books. Is there anything to really correct in the manner and behavior of the children or even the adult inmates? What are the facilities put on ground to take care of them? Are they properly well fed? Are there facilities for leisure? Are there counselors regularly seeing them there? You know, you find that some of them have access even to the internet. Some of them have access to phone. While they are there, they connect with people outside the prison. You know, I've had cause to relate with some of them when I visited them. You find them telling that they make calls. They reach out to some other persons. If you ask the prison officer, they was okay. They took excuse, you know, to give them a phone to make call. Some of them have phone. They have phones with them.
While they are there.
So they still relate with people in the outside world. They connect. And you know, that's why you find out now that by the time they came out, those that broke the prison and they came out, a good number of them easily reconnected, and they are back in the streets. You can see the rate of crime in Edo State. It's a fallout. I believe very strongly. It's a fallout from the prison break. That they connected with people here. They are regrouped here and there. They believe that crime is the way to survive. There's no other way. So I believe that they have not been given that proper orientation while they were there. They have not been, you know, given that hope for a better tomorrow. So they came out, you know, hardened.
From what you see, beyond maybe, as it were, budgeting money, for example, or voting money for rehabilitating and upgrading these facilities, what else must be done by way of ensuring that these facilities are in their best shape?
It's money. If you budget money, you know, and actually put administrators, those who understand what the reform it should be, what rehabilitation should be. You don't just put any person there. You employ any staff and you send them there. There must be somebody in the social works department, whatever it is, who actually understand how to reform a child or reform a human being, you know, and make them have a new orientation. These are experts who should be allowed to work in such places. You know, so they are on ground. All the facilities they require to get this thing to happen should be on ground. When you vote money should be released, and material should be procured, you know, to ensure that things are done properly. Same matter of, okay, the money is in the budget, and then the budget you don't release it, or you eventually release the money, the material is not procured, money goes into other hand. You go to the correctional home, they will tell you how much the federal government will be voting for feeding, and then you now ask yourself, when you now see a malnourished inmate, with the money they are bringing for feeding of these people, where the money going to? Why are they still bringing food from home to take care of them? They must feed properly. Where the money going to? And is the food not being shared by officers in the place, or what is going on? There should be an inquiry into all of this. So when food is being sent, let an inspector officer follow through and ensure that the food is properly administered. You know, the food should be good enough for you, the officer, to eat from. Don't serve them food as if you are serving dogs. They are human beings, for goodness sake. So that food should be palatable enough for you, should be tasty enough for you, and nourishing enough for you to eat on your own, you, the prison officer. Yeah. So when you find that kind of standard, that is what you should give to the inmate. So you that by the time they come out, their psyche, you know, has been reformed. Because a human being will be debased. You make beans, you know, and then it's so watery. You just give them to pass it across to them. The food is not nourishing enough, and the man has to feed on that every now and then. What reformation will you tell him if you're a psychologist? What will you come and tell him to how to have a change of attitude when you come out of this plan, all of that? How can you really reform him? A man is not probably well fed. He will not listen to you. He will not hear anything from you. But when you give him the appropriate facilities and materials and feeding, you know, it will come out better. In 1 minute, I just want you to talk to me about something very significant. We understand that in most cases, there's a transition from the juvenile home to the regular correctional facility. How does that work in 1 minute? It is when they come of age. Okay. Because when you become an adult, you cannot continue to remain in juvenile. The essence of the juvenile home is to keep children away from adults who may influence them negatively. So when a juvenile becomes an adult, you cannot continue to remain in juvenile home. You move to the correctional home, so that you will also influence other children negatively. Right. You know, so that is the essence. Is to protect the child, because knowing the fact that the mind is a terrible thing to waste. You know, so if a child is not properly monitored, and guided, they will come and become a disaster to the society. You know, so they must ensure that those children are kept in there. You know, the proper counselors should be on ground to counsel them, and then the environment should be conducive enough. It should be like a home away from home. I know that they're not going holidaying. Yeah. Many may say, well, they are supposed to be serving punishment. You know, so it's not a holiday. Yes, but if you go to the prisons in developed climes, many of us will tell you that they have a blanket. They don't sleep on the bare floor. All right. You know, they don't sleep while standing. They have other facilities, you know, in there in such a way that they feel more comfortable. They will tell you that, in fact, jocularly, that where it is better to be in the prison, in the developed client, to be a free mind in Nigeria.
In other words, while they are serving punishment, you shouldn't strip them of their humanity.
You should not. They are human beings.
And their dignity.
And their dignity. So properly take good care of them. The punishment is, you know, is good enough. You are restricting
the confinement.
Exactly. It's enough punishment. Like, that you have the mindset of visiting so place, you cannot
can't go. Yeah.
You are in one place. That is enough punishment. Right. But while you are there, you are being taught certain things. This has to be.
And ultimately, you should come out better.
Yes, exactly. You should come out better. That's what we need.
I can imagine.
And if you don't do that, it will be, you know, a recycling, a vicious circle in such a way.
Which is dangerous for society.
You put them in there, after serving his term, he comes back and he influences other children, and they go back to commit crime. You bring them back in there. Right. So they must vote money into that correctional home and ensure that, you know, juvenile home and correctional home, and ensure that
well treated.
Whoever are being kept in there, they come back better.
Thank you so much. It's a very fine place to leave this conversation. Matthias Obayiwa and Esquire, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate your time and your brilliance on this discussion. This is what we're leaving it on Law and You for this week. I'm Agmo Fuegbe. Our coverage on this station continues. Enjoy the rest of your evening.